I'm really hoping that at the end of this very quick session that I have with you, that you'll come away with some tools to really take the storm that we're in right now, and even when it's over, to be able to go into this new world of ours with some confidence and with some perseverance behind us and passionate about what we do. So this world that we are operating in right now has never been, in my knowledge, like it has been. It is a storm of epic proportions. And never before as a planet, as a community, have we been called to step up to the plate with courage and with discipline as we are right now. My name is Peter van Kets. I'm a professional adventurer. And my expeditions have taken me to some of the highest, driest, coldest, wettest, windiest, most beautiful, and I guarantee you most miserable parts of our planet. I have rowed across the Atlantic Ocean with a good friend of mine, Bill Godfrey, in 50 days and 12 hours, winning and breaking a world record. I've spent 76 days in isolation rowing a 7-meter rowing boat, 1.5 hours on, 1.5 hours off, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, also across the Atlantic Ocean. I've been to both the South Pole, full trek to the South Pole, and I've done expeditions in the North Pole. And in all of these expeditions around our planet, I've learned one valuable lesson, is that whatever great story we're going to tell one day, it comes hand in hand with storms and with hardship. I've been in many of the planet's mighty storms, and I've trembled in some of them. You'll see some photographs of them coming now. This is actually us on our boat. This is taken by Norwegian Coast Guard, crossing the Barents Sea on our trip up to the North Pole. An incredible time that we had, and obviously lots of hard lessons learned during the storm. Storms in Iceland, in the South Pole, and the North Pole are very difficult to get through. But one thing that I've learned as well is that in all of these things, and the greatest lessons that I've ever learned have been in those stormy times. Lessons that I speak about in all my keynote addresses are about these storms and the things that I've come through. I've learned that I need to embrace suffering. Now, I know that suffering is something that we don't really want to speak about. But suffering, if we can go to the next slide, please, Cameron. Suffering is one of those things that comes hand in hand, so to speak, with all of my expeditions. The planet at the moment is in a tempest. The way we live and operate is unsustainable. The economic inequality is indefensible. The way we live and travel and the way we choose to eat and deal with waste simply cannot continue. We are already in the storm. We were in it before 2020, but the cyclone has just got real. For everyone everywhere, we'll be in this storm or a series of storms for a very long time. This will be a multi-day ultra marathon as opposed to a sprint. This pandemic is a catalyst for change. It can be our greatest blessing or our greatest curse. Which will it be? We will look back at history, our own personal history, and that of the planet, a decade from now, and give account of it, a narrative. We will document a story of what transpired during this time and post the storm. We get to graft that story. And what will it be? I want to share stories and lessons learned that'll help you survive the storm. Stories that'll not only help you survive the storm, but it'll help you to thrive, to emerge stronger, more full of passion and resolve, resilience and empathy than before. We need to come out of the storm as better humans. Individually and collectively, there are things we can do and must put in place to make this happen. So what am I to do? What are we to do? To emerge from this storm scarred and shaken, but more formidable and changed for the better. How are we to survive and even thrive again? I can only look to my storms that I've already endured back in the dark abyss of despair and fear that I've had in the past, and emerge from in hope and finding clues that'll help me navigate this terrifying but not entirely unfamiliar territory. And slowly the memory returns of the need to take advantage of the storm, to use this as an opportunity, as a grappling hook, to propel myself and others with me forwards to a worthy goal. So how do we, at this time, achieve and sustain true success? If I had to ask you all right now what your idea or concept of success would be, I bet you I'd get 110 different answers. There are 110 people here. For me, true success is being able to achieve that vision and that dream that we set out for ourselves. So Harvard Business School did a study on what is true success, to find common characteristics amongst these people. And at the end of their study, their conclusion was this one thing, that the secret to success remains a secret. That the most common factor found amongst successful people and businesses was this one thing. And it is a significant predictor in that person's ability to achieve and sustain success. Fussbait, grit, perseverance. And there's a good Xhosa word. I'm from the Eastern Cape. I live 20 kilometers north of East London. Nyamazela. Nyamazela is a beautiful word. It means to have this vision in your life, to go on a journey to achieve this thing. And no matter what the storms that we encounter during this time, we'd be able to nyamazela those things and achieve success in the end. So there are 4 things, little tools that I'd like to leave you with right now, that'll enable us to take advantage of the storm, to come out at the end of it and into the future with success and with significance. The Greeks have a word, kairos. And kairos is a moment in our lives where everything changes for the better. There are opportunities that come our way and we either see them or we don't see them. If we see them, we either take them or we don't use it. Our ability to see these opportunities, especially during storm times, for me, is dependent on one thing. It's dependent on whether we are able to focus on the good. Pierre was speaking about it a bit earlier. Focus on the good that's happening around us. During my solo row, and you see a picture of it here, I had a juvenile storm petrel land on my boat. And I put this bird inside the cabin, and it became my friend for 3 days. I named him Simon. But the story I want to tell you about this is that during the storm, the focus during the first 3 days was, oh my goodness, I'm going to die. I'm not going to handle the storm. You know, I'm not going to see my wife again. I'm going to see my daughter again. And it was a complete downward spiral. And as soon as Simon landed on my boat, I could then focus on something completely different. It was focusing on something good. Oh my goodness, I don't want to kill Simon every time I roll over. And so therefore, it really changed the pattern of what was going on inside my head. And I believe that in this time, if we are able to focus on the good that is happening around us, we are in a much better state to be able to take those opportunities, to take those moments, to take that time and use it successfully for us so that it'll change everything for us. In the first row across the Atlantic Ocean with Bill Godfrey, on Christmas Day, we were still en route to breaking the world record and winning the race. And just after Christmas Day, you'll see on this slide right here, we had taken a much more northern route. Only 3 boats had taken this northern route, and the rest of our fierce competitors had gone further south. The day after Christmas, we got the storm, and we were told that if we had to stay in this storm, our chances of missing out in that first position or falling further back to the guys that were further south were quite high. Billy and I had a 1-minute conversation, and this is where we need to be strong and flexible in our approach to what is happening around us. I said to Billy, if we're going to still win this race, we need to change the way our strategy right now. We need to rethink this northern route that we're on. We need to head back down south and pick a fight with our competitors. That's actually what our exact words were. So here's the thing. It took courage to make a decision like that because it's a big decision. We need to be able to be flexible in this time in order to adapt to this changing environment that we have. But then we need to make decisions about what we do. And so after this discussion, Billy and I headed south for 3 days. Now remember, we were rowing an hour and a half on, an hour and a half off, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We went, during those 3 days, we headed south with the hands, like you saw pictures of it earlier, the hands raw with boils on your backside, etc. We shortened our rest period down to a half an hour, which meant we went from rowing hour and a half on to hour and a half off to hour and a half on, half an hour off. Rowing 12 hours a day to 20 hours a day. It means that we had to suck it up and really get back out there and row much harder in those stormy times with the hands like they were, with the buttocks like they are, in order to catch up with our competitors. And that's exactly what we did for 3 days and 3 nights. As we turned on the latitude 17 degrees north, we were 30 miles ahead of our next competitors. But here's the trick. Those boats that stayed further north did not change their strategy. They continued on that track. Those 2 boats arrived in Antigua at the end of the 5,500 kilometers of rowing, 2.5 weeks after we finished our race. So we need to be strong and flexible in our approach to what's happening. Then we need to take advantage of the storms. We quite quickly worked out, if we can get back to the previous slide, Cameron, we quite quickly worked out that every single storm that we got into in the first row across the Atlantic, there were things that we could do that our competitors weren't doing that would make us better and more efficient at what was going on during that storm. We worked out that all the other boats were putting out their parachute anchors, putting out their drogue chutes, taking it easy. No, not taking it easy, but really taking it a safe way. Billy and I shortened our rest period. Again, down to a half an hour. We rowed extra 6 hours a day during those storms. And at the end of every storm, we were miles ahead of our competitors. Another thing that happens out in the middle of the ocean, and it's an amazing place to be, is you get these quick storms. They last for a day or even 4 or 5 hours. And this photograph that you see right in front of you now is during one of these smaller storms. You can see I'm holding the oars down. I'm bracing myself for the next wave that's just about to break over the boat. And so what Billy and I did during this time, because fresh water is one of those things that you don't get a lot of when you're rowing an ocean. And so every time we would see one of these storms coming, we would quickly grab our shampoo bottle, pour it over our head like this, rub it in, and wait for that squall and the storm to come. And as it would come, we'd have this fresh shower. Now, what most other boats are doing during this time is they were also getting into their cabins. Now, those cabins are smelly places after a couple of days out at sea, I promise you. And they were battening the hatches. And every time they would come out, they'd be smelling a little worse and feeling a little worse. And here we were using and taking the storm and taking advantage of it. And so at the end of each of those storms, we were feeling much fresher. And remember, it's all about what happens inside your head. So there are things that we can do during this time. I don't know what it is for you, particularly in your profession or in your work. There are things that we can do to take advantage of that, because we're all in this together in the end. 3 weeks before the end of my solo row across the Atlantic Ocean. Now remember, I rowed for 76 days on this one. I started getting a 1.5 knot current against me. And I could only row, and the best way to put this is I could only row 3 steps forwards in that hour and a half. And then when I rested for the hour and a half, I would go 4 steps backwards. So at the end of my shift, I would finish. You can see me sitting on that rowing seat. I'd pull my oars in. I'd finish up and I'd go up to my GPS and I'd press in my GPS and I'd zoom right in. And I would see my boat on the track. And I could see where I'd gone and then where I'd stopped. And at 30 feet, I would see my dots coming back down again, exactly on the same route that I had just rowed on. When I got back onto oars an hour and a half later, I would never get back to that point that I'd been on the previous shift. Now I want you to try and picture that just for one moment. And I know we're kind of experiencing that right now in our lives. But imagine just for one day with the hands like they are, with the backside boiled, etc., salt sores everywhere where the sun doesn't shine. Every hour and a half, you get back onto oars and you cannot get back to that position that you started from. One of the things that got me really early on is what I'm going to do right now is actually just pull the oars in and wait for the storm to go. And once it's gone, then I'm going to check out what's going on and then I'm going to row my guts out again. And there's always that temptation to do that. But I've learned that if we are relentless in what we do, our chances of winning the race, of breaking the world record, and I speak metaphorically here, much greater than if we weren't going to do it. So at that end of the hour and a half, pull your oars in, rest for an hour and a half. Get back out, suck it up, and row for another hour and a half as if you're going to win that race. We need to be relentless with what we do. I had 2 mantras written on my boat, and these are the things that really got me through this row. 1, this will end. Like my presentation in a few minutes' time, it's going to end. The storm that we're in right now will end at some stage. And 2, I am never, ever alone in the storm. One of the great things that I did during my row, 76 days of isolation is a long time, is I had 5 things to look forward to every day. And maybe this is something that you can do and your teams can do back at work. Set 5 things to look forward to every day. One of them, and I only have time to speak about one of them, was I did this. I wrote down 90 names before the start of the row. And every day during that row, I would phone that person up, and let's just say it was Cameron. I'd phone Cameron up and I'd say, Cameron, it's Pete van Kets. And they'd usually go, oh my goodness, Pete, what you doing? And I'd say, Cameron, I don't have much time to speak about this, but today I'm phoning you to tell you that I'm dedicating this day to you. It's not about me. I'm going to row 50 miles for you. I'm going to dedicate this day to you because this is what you have done for me in my life. So you see, what happens here is it takes away the whole you suffering thing and it becomes other people. So you start doing this thing not for yourself, but for other people. And the response from these people was absolutely phenomenal, like mind-blowing. It changed the nature of that row for me. So, and you see in the next slide there, Cameron, the storm is going to end. We will get into this nice, calm water. Well, calm. And in fact, often during this, you see this photograph here. It looks nice and calm, right? That's in the middle of the ocean. That's 2,700 kilometers of water all around me. And it was actually during this time that I had that 1.5 knot of current against me. So it may look calm, but it's, don't judge a book by its cover. So I'm going to be quite vulnerable with you right now. My career as a speaker and adventurer was lurched to a grinding halt 2 months ago. My healthy pipeline of talks and expeditions almost vanished overnight, as did my income. It's worrying. Can we survive it? Can we take care of our staff? And I know that a lot of people are thinking the same thing. And most importantly, can we still take care of our responsibilities for the next 3 months? If our panicking creditors pay us, maybe longer. The fear, anxiety, and uncertainty are sometimes overwhelming. The anxiety for many, many people in my immediate community is substantial, and especially the more vulnerable. This is all exacerbated by the fact that our freedom to recharge our batteries and gain perspective from nature has been curtailed drastically by the rules of this lockdown. I'm grateful for this moment, for the lessons and the coping skills which were the byproducts of my overexposure to both storms and isolation. This is followed by the memory of the fact that this will not be easy. It will take courage and discipline and the willingness to embrace suffering. It may take humility to admit that our strategy may have been wrong and may require flexibility and curiosity to make a complete turnabout in the way we operate. And this cannot be achieved in the absence of resilience. And resilience cannot exist in a vacuum because it must be unlocked and ignited by passion. And our passion has never been more important or critical to our ability to survive and thrive in these turbulent times as it is right now. Thank you very much for your time. I look forward to maybe meeting some of you someday. It's been a great pleasure.
What did you do in your 75 days of lockdown on a boat if you didn't have a fridge to walk and look into every 10 minutes?
If I didn't have a fridge.
Because I find myself looking at the fridge every 10 minutes and I'm like, has something appeared in here that I can just eat for no reason? How did you cope with those kinds of things?
So Edmund Hillary said, I don't know if you know the story of him and Tenzin Norgay when they got down Mount Everest. When they got to the bottom, they were interviewed by a BBC reporter and they said, well, so how was that? What did you guys do? What is your strategy to do that? And the first thing Edmund Hillary said was, I need you to understand that it wasn't the mountain that we conquered. It was ourselves and what was going on inside our heads. And so I had a strategy around food, okay, and the fridge. And that is that I'm never going to be thinking about cheeseburgers and ice cold Cokes and ice blocks and any of that thing, because what it does is it erodes what's going on inside your head. I had freeze-dried food, I had olive oil, and that's the kind of only thing. And I had biltong. And that was one of the 5 things that I look forward to every day on my journey was, you know, having that biltong, having that coffee. Those are the things that I rewarded myself with. So anything that could really take my mind off and make me feel negative about what was happening in my environment, I really switched off to. And that was one of them, not having a fridge. I switched off to that. Cameron, I don't know if that answers your question.
It definitely does. And it reminds me that I miss biltong.